Hey there. Before we get into today's podcast, I want to remind you all about Ear Coffee's 7th anniversary that's coming up this September at the Cedar Cultural Center, featuring 4 really cool local bands that are very special to us. We have Bugsy, Kate Milanofi, Malamiko, and Melon Bees. Shows on Friday, September 6th. Doors are at 7. Show starts at 8. Tickets are on sale now at the Cedar Cultural Center website. And let's get into the show, because my name is Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. If you follow local underground music here in Minnesota, there's probably one name that you know above all others. It's UnderCurrentMPLS. They're this organization that seems to be everywhere. They film parts of shows, and they have this great back catalog of bands that don't exist anymore, and you constantly are seeing output from them on social media, whether it's Instagram or a clip on Twitter, or even on their YouTube channel, which has over like 8,000 some videos on it of local music. And I got a chance to talk with Gravy, the founder and the kind of the ringleader behind putting it all together to make sure that bands here are not forgotten. And this year they're celebrating 13 years. It's also a bittersweet anniversary, as they have a fundraiser for one who's very close to them, who's suffering from a debilitating disease. The show is this Friday and Saturday at Palmer's. It's got 27 some bands playing, including some of those bands who haven't been around for a while. So they're coming back together to kind of support this really cool and really special cause. I will be including Carly's GoFundMe in the link, as well as tickets to the show. It's Gravy of Undercurrent MPLS, and he's right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast.
Gravy, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Awesome. And I'm glad we can have you on. We're here to talk about, well, one, just the project in general, as you're just kind of like these fantastic scene, or the whole project of like a scene documentarian of sorts. And two, we just want to kind of learn a little bit more about what Undercurrent Minneapolis is for, like myself, who just wants to know, why, the how, the what's going on. So first, we always like to ask bands, and since you're not a band in this sense, how do you describe Undercurrent Minneapolis to people when they go, what is that thing? I maybe seen a YouTube video or a Twitter like video quick, but what is it?
Yeah, that's really hard for me to answer, honestly, because it's almost like it isn't anything. It's a Instagram page, and YouTube channel was like a Facebook page, but really it's calling it a blog doesn't really make sense, because there's not like really writing. It's a lot of just presenting content without commentary. But I like to think of the project is kind of like what zines are a really important thing for any music scene, and I think those still exist, obviously, but I kind of think of this as like sort of a continuation of like music, a music zine of some sort, but just now it's on social media. It's just like a way to discover music, and the archive part of it, I think, is like what's really important to me is just having this history of recordings of bands over the last 13 years. So yeah, like an archival sort of music promotion thing. I wish there was a word that summed it up, but I haven't really landed on anything that seems to like accurately describe what it is.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's kind of like Ear Coffee. We're like a blog, but a podcast, multimedia experience. Like, what do you call it? Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. And so, obviously, I just want to know kind of what was your reason for starting this, 13 years ago? Were you playing in bands and just kind of started recording sets, or what was like the method, and what was your kind of history here playing in the scene or in music in general,
Yeah, I've always, played in bands since I was in high school, off and on, and then like regularly would go to shows, and always loved seeing live music and bands. And really like the formation of Undercurrent MPLS wasn't something that I put too much thought into, really. It was like a friend of mine had gotten, an iPhone that recorded decent video at shows, and I was immediately got one. And like, the first video I took was actually of this band called Fetch the Warden that I recorded most of their set because they let me know, they hadn't recorded an album, and they let me know they were breaking up, so there wouldn't be a recording.
Oh,
so I recorded it to have it for myself. And then I was kind of thinking about how I had this recording and like, well, this is like, at least at the time, it was pretty good quality. Now if I look back at it, it sucks compared to the phones now. But I was like, I don't want to just, I could put it on my own social media or like my own YouTube channel, but having there be like a place to put stuff like that, if I was to continue, that was more accessible, that like someone wouldn't have to necessarily know me personally to see it, seemed like a good idea. And then also at that same time, I kind of noticed just like in the music scene, at least from my perspective, it felt like there was like not enough things that were connecting people. Like I knew of these bands great that hadn't heard of each other all over the place. And, and one of the funny things is that calling it Undercurrent MPLS is kind of a reference a little bit to the current, as like at that time it felt like that was like one of the only things that bands had as far as like getting exposure to people they don't already know. Which I thought of that as like, a culture, counterculture, current, undercurrent kind of thing. But if I had known I was going to continue doing this for as long as I was, and that it would be like something that more than just my like close friends that paid attention to it, I probably would have come up with a different name. But now I think of that name as just being, its own thing, But yeah, that's kind of the genesis of it. It was very much just like, what do I want to be able to capture music and have it preserved in some way that's better than just going onto my personal social media and stuff.
Yeah. Did you expect it to, last 13 years, or did you expect it to be kind of something you did for like a little bit and you called it a day?
Yeah. I mean, like a few, there's been times when I've like had to take a break from it here or there for just like life stuff, getting too busy. But yeah, like once I was a few years in, I'm like, oh, it's important that this, at least it's important to me that this continues on for as long as it can, just to like, have something that sort of tells a story without using any words or anything, but just like through the content, you can get a taste of like what the underground music scene was like, and how it's changed and evolved, and what bands have broken up and then reformed, or, so many of the videos on there are like just bands that only lasted for a very brief moment, and having a way to reference that, is just really important to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I always like, as a viewer and someone who's followed for a long time, it's funny because Aly and I appear in the Cloud Nothing set someone filmed in like 2017. And it's funny because that show, some drunk guy grabbed one of us and like almost drug Aly and a monitor off stage with them at the Fine Line. And
wow.
And so it's just like funny that like that moment is captured on tape from that show. And that was like kind of one of the first times we had like realized that this entity existed. We're like, and it caught this really kind of comedic moment after the fact, somewhere.
Can you see that happen?
100%. Like it, because
weird.
In person, it was in slow motion. Like I see this guy in a red hoodie go, woo, and grab Aly by the midsection to like drag her into the mosh pit or something. He got kicked out right away. And then like grab a monitor to stop the whole thing from happening. And it was like, do I fight this guy now? I think I might. But you watch the video and it was all of 2 seconds. And then like you see, and then they get like punted quickly. And it's just the funniest, like, just kind of full circle moment almost.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild when you capture something like that.
Yeah.
Like a very specific memory of someone's on the recording, like unintentionally.
Yeah. And you guys are everywhere. How many people Current like film generally, do you have like a running roster? Is obviously it probably fluctuates given people's life and kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I've generally been pretty open to anyone that seems like serious about regularly giving content, or like allowing me to post their content. I've let do it, especially people that seem really excited about doing it. Right now, there's a group of maybe 4 or 5 regular people that will send me stuff, and sometimes I'll get really backed up on it, but I'll just have like a Dropbox link people will upload to, or they'll get me files in different ways. And I'd say that's over the years, off and on, there's always been like 2 or 3 other people that will just be consistently giving me stuff for a while, and then kind of will dry up, or kind of fluctuate on their like interest levels and engagement in the scene, everything. But that's huge, and I love that. I love getting videos from other people, and I'm seeing shows I'm not at, and then it just feels at least like a little bit more of a representation of not just the shows I was at,
Yeah.
Which that's the thing to avoid, is have it be like less about just my personal experience, So having content come in from other, and I found out about so many cool bands that way, of just, hey, here's this video of this band that somebody would take, and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know this band existed.
Yeah. Well, it's
always a great experience.
Oh, totally. And you kind of like, I know always a conversation within like local DIY will always be just kind of how homogenized it can feel, and just being able to show like these bands exist, or DIY is more than just like some like indie punk or some like garagey kind of sounding thing. There's pop, and there's also this fun stuff, and the fact that you can find it all in one place is like really special.
Yeah, I think that's and I've always been someone that loved so many different styles of things. Like obviously, like a lot of what's on Undercurrent maybe falls in that like rock, punk, metal world, but I love when we were able to get just like different parts of the scene. Anytime I'm able to have more variety, I'm all about it.
Yeah. Do you have people frequently just kind of reach out and be like, hey, I filmed X, set on my phone. Can I send it to you? Or is that something you like regularly accept from people?
Yeah, I try to as much as I can, but also it's hard to keep up with it all. But anytime I'll try to make a point to check it out. Like worst case, it just sits in my messages and I don't get to it, or but I try to include as much as I can that comes from other sources.
Totally. And do you have like a regular upload schedule at all, or is it mostly just kind of when you can dump, a couple of sets at a run? Or
yeah, it's all and I think part of why I've been able to keep doing it for as long as I have is I've always kept it as just like a hobby I'm doing when I have time and I have the energy and I feel like working on it. So, which I often do. Like if I have free time, like one of my favorite things to be doing is working on adding stuff to the YouTube and the Instagram and everything. But I try to, avoid any pressure deadlines or anything like that, because otherwise I would get burnt out, if I felt like it was a job or something like that. So there's no real schedule to any of it.
Totally. Well, and you don't want to make like the thing, you do for fun a job, because that just kind of ruins the vibe for it. You don't want to be like, all right, look through my list of shows. I need to go catch these 4, because you don't want to,
Yeah, totally. I try to keep it just do what I want to do when, do work on it when I want to work on it, and that's treated me well throughout the whole thing. And I think that that the very like the hobby nature of it, I think also is something that maybe translates to people that enjoy it too, is like, hey, this isn't like some professional thing. It's just a guy and some other folks just that really like the music scene, just trying to promote it and expose people to weird music when they can, without any kind of other motive than that, you know.
You know, do you have like a list in your brain how many, you know, sets you've probably documented, how many sets that have been, or videos that have been posted by Undercurrent, or is that just kind of you check in the YouTube every now and again and go, damn?
Yeah, I know recently the amount went to 8,000 videos.
Wow.
So it's quite a bit, but that's not full sets.
No.
Like a very, you know, really will get a full set, but I usually try to keep the videos as a full song at least, versus just little clips here or there, just to, I don't know, for consistency's sake.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So 8,000, which is, I can't wait till it gets to 10,000.
Yeah.
Really bizarre.
Were you someone who liked to consume a lot of like archivist kind of media similarly growing up, or was this kind of like as you move through the scene, like you kind of mentioned earlier, is something you wanted to start doing?
I think, you know, I don't think that consciously I thought of this, but I remember some things I saw as a kid that I got kind of obsessed with when I was younger for a while, was like things like, you ever see that movie Hype, about the Seattle scene?
I don't know if I've seen Hype.
It was just like I remember, you know, getting obsessed with that whole wave of like Nirvana and all the bands with that at that time. Is like, that was like a very pivotal moment for me as a young person getting into music. Like, it really felt like that was the start of something for me, like the gateway into getting into everything. And I loved, you know, like Nirvana's albums and stuff like that. But then watching something that was a documentary about the city that they came from, and all the a bunch of different bands from there that you wouldn't have heard of. And even also just watching like the Nirvana Live Tonight Sold Out, like compilation, things like that, where I would see like, seeing these sort of like more raw moments of a band, or, you know, less polished footage, is something I was really drawn to. And I think that when I think about like what I'm interested in as I work on stuff with Undercurrent, I think back to that initial excitement with that sort of media. You know, it was like seeing a band and then like understanding where they come from and the context of which they fit in with the other bands of the city they're from. Yeah. I think just gives you like such a better like understanding of why they are the way they are, and what, you know, where their sounds come from. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's like the seed, maybe. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's always like my favorite in the documentary is the dude who's not in a band, but he's like a like a DJ from the local radio station. He's just a dude talking about it that doesn't have like a direct connection. That I always loved that influence or angle or perspective when learning about, you know, a VH1 documentary on Seattle or something similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I love stuff like that in general. Just any, I don't know, backstory you get of things. I would hope that's kind of what, if somebody were to like be exploring the Undercurrent archives or whatever, that they would feel like they understood kind of the context that some of these bands that they might have already known about come out of, and the lineage between the different venues and the different, you know, at this point with 13 years, you have like almost a full different generation of musicians being, you know, presented there. Yeah. So I just think that's super interesting. Like that's what keeps me going on it.
No, totally. Is there, as someone who's done this for, you know, as long as you have, are there bands that you hear roots, or are there bands that you remember when you were first starting that you can kind of hear their roots in bands today when you go out and see? Is there like a band that you think, oh yeah, they are definitely like X band you hear today, or maybe not one for one, but you know, that kind of that seminal, almost Minneapolis DIY sound from when you're kind of were first starting out?
Ooh, I mean, it's hard to single out any specific.
That's fair.
Band, really, but
or even groups of bands or collections of scenes,
Yeah. Like I think of bands that paved the way for a lot of like a band like Kitten Forever. I think they were a really important band that influenced and inspired a bunch of bands to sort of like at least take their ethos and their whole like I think of them as a genesis of something in the scene for sure. I'm trying to think of some other bands that like are really obvious in that way, but I think I see that kind of thing all the time in just different pockets.
Yeah.
But I also kind of hate like the concept of when someone plays in something just because it maybe sounds like something from before it a little bit, that doesn't mean that it's not like its own thing. Or
totally new,
yeah,
no, I get you. Like you don't want to be like, well, obviously they sound just be like one of those nerds, and you're just like, we're making music, we're having fun. It's great to have great music outside our door, essentially.
Yeah.
So moving on, I want to talk about the anniversary show coming up here in about a week and a half, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. And this year's 13th Fartiversary is a benefit show for a frequent contributor and someone who's special to you. Carly, you want to talk about kind of the benefit and kind of what's going on to what you want to mention?
Yeah. So Carly's is my ex-partner, and she was involved in Undercurrent for almost all of our relationship. She was involved in getting videos and taking pictures and helping with a lot of the behind the scenes, like organizing with the show promotion that I do. And I still use the stuff that she helped me develop as far as tools for tracking things like that. And so she's just been very involved in like my life, obviously, but also Undercurrent as a thing. And yeah, this March she was diagnosed with ALS, which is a terminal illness that basically, yeah, it's a neurological disorder with that's her brain and her muscles basically aren't communicating should, and she experiences atrophy, and it's a horrible disease. And she's just such a great great supporter of local music, and she always has been, and she's just made such a big difference in everything that Undercurrent MPLS. It only made sense to make this Fartiversary a benefit show for her as she goes into this, and there's going to be a lot of expenses with managing what her life will be like now with her and her living situation. Right now she's living up north with her parents, and like there'll be a lot of adjustments that'll need to be made to set her up, so just having her be kind of set with whatever she needs. And also another thing that I'm really looking forward to is like beyond just the money raised from this show, just having an experience like this where she can be, because she's going to come to the shows for as long as she can based on energy levels, have her be able to see the scene coming out and showing support for her. I think will be really important for her,
Absolutely. No, totally. And so during this fest, you guys will be at Palmer's on the West Bank, and it'll be a Friday and a Saturday.
It's Friday and Saturday. So the show starts Friday at 5:00 and goes until bar close. We'll be out on the patio for the early evening, and then moves inside after 9. And maybe it's after 10. And then Saturday goes all day from noon until bar close again. So 27 bands. They're all really, really great bands. Really, really amazing that they were all down to have this be a benefit show. Really, really appreciate that with them.
Yeah, you guys cover a lot of ground with even the DIY scene over the course of these 2 days. Kind of, you want to get, you don't have to run through all of them, but kind of talk about who people can expect to see when they come out on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't played for kind of a long time. A few of those would be like Hardcore Crayons is playing Friday night, and they played. I got them to play my 40th birthday party, like a year and a half ago or something. But like besides that, they hadn't played in forever, and they're just like old sweet friends of mine. Super good, just experimental, kind of prog, but some dub in there. Like just a really, really strange band. So excited that they're playing. And Crimes is another one that's they like half the band lives in other states, so they don't play super often. So that's a big return. Royal Brat is also a band that is pretty rare to see these days. I think they maybe played a year or 2 years ago. Okay, but they were more active. Maybe they were pretty active in like the mid 2000s, but there's this great or mid 20 teens, whatever you call that decade. Yeah. But they were like just a really great, cool punk band. Yeah, there's I could talk about each of the bands playing, but there are so many awesome and just weird. There's a lot of variety, I think, on the bill too. Like, so if anyone's able to, and we have a trophy for anyone that watches a part of every band set, which I'll be super impressed if anybody does that, because I know it's not easy to stay at a venue for that long. But I think anyone that does make it through will have a great time, because there's so much cool shit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a stacked gig that for both Friday and Saturday. And tickets.
Another one that's reuniting is Hollow Boys. They haven't played in a long time too.
I was really
just kind of wanted to at least mention the bands that like are kind of bringing back, coming back. And Drug Budget. They also are a band that haven't played for a long time. I thought it was cool to have like as many reuniting or rare acts as I could get on this, but also with a lot of amazing new and just current bands.
Yeah, no, Hollow Boys I'm excited for if I can make it out with my work schedule, because I was like, is that the same one that formed, Another Heaven formed out of? But yeah, it totally is.
Yep.
Tickets are on sale now. Are people able to get them day of if they can't get them online, or should you just say buy your pass online?
Yeah, so we did the multi-day pass as a pre-sale thing, which we make sure, if anybody I knew a few people that were coming in from out of town to be able to go. So I want to make sure there was an option for people to for sure guarantee they can get in.
Yeah.
But, and I know a lot of people can't go to both days. So at the door, people will be able to pay day by day too. But we're not going to do any pre-sale for the individual days. Just really, it's in some ways it's better if people just buy at the door, because there's less internet fee associated with that, with like dice or whatever. But also super awesome if people are buying the pre-sale, because that's just like, it gives us an idea of like how many people are going to for sure be there. But yeah, I'm very I feel like a lot of people are excited about it, and I'm very excited to see people come out and enjoy themselves.
Yeah. Have you done an anniversary show for every year of Undercurrent, or is this?
No, I haven't. I usually just do it when I feel like doing it, I guess.
That's so fair.
I did it I think the last one was the 11 year, so 2 years ago at Cedar, and that was a lot of fun. And then we did one at Uptown VFW, and like 2018 or something. So I'll take a few years off here and there. Like this, I probably won't do one next year. I'll probably wait until like the 15 year or something like that.
Booking 27 bands regularly is no easy task. So I totally get it.
Yeah. And I try to just space it out to, I don't know. I think I would get like bored of it if I did it every year, but just spacing it even 2 years makes it feel exciting again.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Totally get you. So just got a few more questions for you. First, this one is kind of interesting to me, which is with all of the videos that you've shot or posted or kind of watched through, are there any like set or like bands that you've been able to grab and post that like stand out to you, or maybe like a weird set that you didn't expect to have, or kind of, is there something that really sticks in your mind when you think, damn, I really got that, or like you really kind of think back to?
Oh, it's so hard to think of specific
and that's why I say it's kind of it's also just a loaded question. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think that like that I'll get a video and I'll think it's cool, but I won't realize how cool it is until even a year later. I'll rewatch it or go through the like on this day, and I'm like, oh my god, that was amazing, because you sometimes take things for granted in the moment. But yeah, like one of my favorite local bands was Animal Lover.
Okay.
Like every time I like come through and I see one of their videos from years ago, I'm just like, oh my god, that band was pure fire. Or like anytime we've gotten to catch Uranium Club or something like that, it's like, this is a band that's so tight and next level, on it with their stuff. And it's just, there's so many things like that where I feel like there's not an obvious like one, but just a few. Those are a few I think of off the top of my head of sometimes looking at it's not even really about the way it was captured or anything. It's just like, oh, those bands are just so good, and I happened to be there when they were like really on it at these certain moments.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then kind of similar question as we wind down here. And this again is another loaded question, but we always love to give people the opportunity to kind of talk about some of their local favorites and maybe shout out some of the bands they're listening to. It's not an exhaustive list by any means, because if we wanted to do that, we'd be here all night just remembering some guys. And so kind of who for you are some bands that our listeners should check out, make sure it's kind of in their playlists or in their rotations?
Oh, well, I think it only makes sense for me to talk about some that are playing the Fartiversary, just because those are all artists that I think are doing really cool things, or else, coming back to do cool things they don't do as often. I hadn't seen Riot Girl Darko play myself until a few months ago, and I was just absolutely blown away by Riot Girl Darko's performance, and the recordings are so good too. So I would strongly recommend people check that out. I almost want to just pull up the list.
Take your time quick to pull it up.
There's so many good things. Malamiko just put out such a good album. I've been listening to that pretty consistently since it came out. Like just trying to think of like recent releases from some of these. I know like Unstable Shapes, who's really good. They put out some music recently that was really good. Shrimp Olympics plays all the time lately, but they put out a cool album about a year ago called Feel that's really good. And like Time Room's writing some really cool songs right now. I think they're going to be going in to record sometime soon. At least their sets would make me suggest that band's incredible. Another band that's playing that hasn't played in a while is Liquid Lunch. That's a band that also has members from out of town. And Gash from Eau Claire is coming into town. They're really good. I'm trying to think of any other. I've enjoyed the recordings of. I was just listening to She's Green earlier today. That band's really, really nailing it right now. Yeah, I mean, I could go on and try to list a bunch more, but I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, all of it. Just listen to all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, I don't listen to like music at home nearly as much as I do. Like, I feel like most of my music listening is live when I go out.
No, totally.
You know,
it's
at least like with local bands. Some of my favorite local bands would be like, oh, I've like only listened to their album once or something, but I've seen them, you know, hundreds of times.
No, totally. It's a different way to consume it. It's a way that I really enjoy, exclusive, like almost getting a live recording, just because you can get that fury and that energy and that different vibe.
Yeah.
And then finally here, where can people find Undercurrent MPLS? You know, you post all the time. Where can they learn about upcoming gigs? Where can we find you?
Yeah, there's a Linktree page that you could go to if you aren't on social media. But otherwise, I would say that the Instagram is probably the easiest way to start following it or start paying attention to it, because that has the Linktree on it and everything. And then also you can get to the YouTube channel, but it kind of depends. I know some people just exclusively pay attention to the YouTube channel because they're only interested in the videos. Mm-hmm. But I think the Instagram page is really helpful for the show postings, because I don't know if we talked about that part. Basically every day there's a post that has a list of all of the shows that I know about, basically, or like that I want people to know about. I try to keep that like pretty comprehensive, and then there's 2 months out as much as I can keep it filled in, listed on the Linktree through this doc that shows what's coming up. And yeah, sometimes that's more up to date than it is other times. It all kind of depends on my availability. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if I was meeting someone that today that didn't know what it was, I would just tell them to go to the Instagram page and get into it from there, probably.
Yeah. No, totally. If someone doesn't know what gig they should see on a given day, I would recommend going to the Undercurrent MPLS Instagram and look at your story, because you got a million posters of what you could find from everything you could think of.
Yeah, and I wish that I try to find stuff like that in other cities all the time. So I'm like, what's going on here? So I think it's usually a really helpful thing too for people that are just here for a short period of time, or like are new to the city. It would be really helpful for them, I'm sure.
No, totally. Well, Gravy, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for stopping by and chatting about Undercurrent Minneapolis, MPLS, and the 13th Fartiversary. For people who want links to tickets, you can find it in the show notes below, as well as everything else we kind of talked about during this episode. Gravy, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
You have been listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share so we can stand out against the sea of other music podcasts. You can find information from this podcast and other important links in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support us, please consider subscribing on Patreon for early access to episodes, live sessions, and other bonus content. You can also subscribe to our Substack for a regular newsletter with reviews, ramblings, and other written content. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.